Welcome to another episode of Transform Yourself, the podcast that's all about empowering you to shed those stubborn pounds and embrace your best selves. We are your hosts, Kacy and Tyler, and we use the 4 M's of fitness, Mindshift, meal shift, micro habits, and muscle building to create attainable and sustainable approach to weight loss. We have lost a collective 130 pounds. We've kept it off for 2 years, and today we are taking a dive into the power of Mindshift. Mindshift is the first M in Form Fit, and if you follow me on social media, you know that Mindshift has to come first in weight loss. You have to change the way you think about yourself. You have to change your self-talk in order to truly make sustainable changes. And during the month of April, we are going to do 4 consecutive episodes on the 4 M's of fitness. So this one will be on Mindshift, and next week we will cover meal shift, then micro habits, then muscle building, so that you can truly understand the 4 M's of fitness, how they fit into your life, and how they can help you through your own transformation. So we will get into all things Form Fit. Weight loss isn't just about shedding pounds, it's about transforming your entire relationship with yourself. So let's explore why you can't hate yourself thin and why self-love is kind of the cornerstone to successful weight loss.
Did you say you can't hate yourself thin?
I did say that.
Okay.
You can't. It's true.
Okay. I mean, I've never heard that before, but I'm not a lady.
I mean, you can't stand in front of the mirror and just self-loathe. Self-loathing
I feel like guys
does
have
nothing.
the opposite problem. We look in the mirror and go, damn, I look good.
Is that what happens?
And then it's, maybe it's not quite as good as you're thinking there, buddy. You got blind confidence.
And I know what you listeners are thinking. How can I just change the way I think about myself? Just like with any other changes that you make, you have to do it with intentional practice. And let me be clear in the idea that Mindshift might be the toughest of the 4 M's to overcome, because you're literally working on rewiring your brain and the way you think. And your brain likes comfort, and your brain likes to use patterns of thinking, and it likes to think the way you have always thought before. It likes mental shortcuts. Your brain likes the easy route. So making a change to how you think about yourself is for sure, it's tough work, but it's worthwhile work. Absolutely worthwhile. And also, let me say that it is really easy to measure the other 3 M's in Form Fit. You can easily measure meal shift, micro habits, and muscle building. You can measure meal shift with the amount of food that you put on your plate, the calories that you consume. You can measure micro habits with the amount of water you drink daily or the number of steps you get. And you can measure muscle building with the size of weights you're lifting, or maybe even your muscle size as your muscles are growing. It's really hard to measure Mindshift. So this is the 1 M of Form Fit that is the most important, but it's also the hardest to measure.
The most elusive?
Yes. So, and maybe that's why it's so tough, because you can't...
100% it's the most tough.
Because you can't measure it. It just takes practice over time.
Yes, because you can't... there probably are strategies you could use
to measure your thoughts?
No, but I'm not trying to argue for the sake of argument. I'm just thinking... Like,
okay.
Just like some things I've done.
Such as?
Like trying to journal and trying to do stuff like that to try to wrap your head around things in your life, and going to therapy when it's necessary.
That's true. So you can take measures.
Yeah, but I still agree with your point that it's the most difficult thing. And it doesn't matter if it's weight loss or if it's finding a new job or if it's starting a business. It's all of like the mental aspect that is the most challenging.
Right.
In all things.
And I'm not saying all of this to discourage you, that it's the toughest one to discourage you. I'm standing firm in the idea that Mindshift has to be in place for sustainable weight loss. Intentional practice of having new thoughts, that's what it takes. And I know what your questions are. How do I practice new thoughts, and what kind of new thoughts should I have? And that is what we're going to dive into today. I'm going to break this down into 3 steps for you. Step 1, we're going to let go of our past self and our past thoughts. Step 2 is to decide what your new thoughts are going to be. You have to craft those new thoughts. And I have a model that we're going to use in order to do that. And step 3 is practicing the new thoughts and how you can practice those new thoughts. So let's get into it with step 1, letting go of your past self and your past thoughts. The first step to Mindshift is just that. And it's essential to recognize that your past does not define your future. You are not bound by your previous experiences. You have the power to shape your journey from this moment forward. The past self can be anywhere from childhood past all the way to yesterday. Yesterday is also your past. Let's first touch on your childhood self, that past. How many of you were part of the Clean Plate Club when you were a child? How many of you still have a tough time leaving a single bite of food on your plate despite how full you feel because you are part of the Clean Plate Club? I mean, I remember mom and dad telling me not to get up from the table until my plate was clean.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem.
You didn't have that problem? Is it because you just finished your plate anyways? You were a growing boy?
I was a growing boy, putting out lots of calories. I don't remember it ever being an issue. I also don't remember them ever saying that. I don't think that's something that they ever said.
Another thing we can reflect on from childhood is how many of you were rewarded with food on a regular basis? If something went really well, or you went to a dance recital, how many of you were rewarded afterwards with maybe ice cream or cake or those kind of things?
Well, everybody does that.
We still do.
We do it. I've done it with my children.
Yeah. It is a pattern that we have to also make sure that we reward not just with food. There is food
cash
reward,
prizes.
But then I mean,
you won Little League, you just start thumbing out 20s.
No. So it's good to have a balance, just like anything else, it's to not just reward with food. But then also quite the opposite. If something goes bad in your life, maybe work has not gone so well, maybe you treat yourself with cake or cookies or something from the pantry that you love. It's important to recognize your early childhood, that your family helped form your initial relationship with food. And you can't change your relationship with food unless you understand it and where it came from. Let's fast forward to your other past self, your yesterday self, or maybe your last week self, or your last month self. What thoughts does that person have? And do those thoughts serve your goals? Do you think of yourself as a dieting failure? Maybe you failed all the diets in the past. Maybe you have a history of yo-yo dieting. I mean, I for sure, huge yo-yo dieter. You've probably listened to my videos where I've said I've tried all the diets, and it is true. I tried them all. And I ultimately, over time, was not successful because I gained the weight back. So the thought in my head that any diet would ever work, I didn't think it would. Automatically had the thought, my past self has failed at all diets, therefore my future self will fail at all diets. That thought does not serve you or your goals. Maybe you're 5 days into a new diet, you step on a scale and you see the scale go up a pound and you think, I knew it wasn't going to work. I always fail at diets and this diet is no different and I'm no different.
Can I point out how many times I've heard you say that since I've known you, that you went on some sort of diet and then 6 days in, it went up a pound and you were angry at the scale?
I was so angry at the scale. In fact, I remember allowing the scale to determine my mood for the remainder of the day. And the first 5 minutes of my day, getting on the scale and seeing it go up by 1 or 2 pounds, even maybe sometimes 3. When I thought I was working so hard and diligently at a new diet, immediately bad mood. I'm a failure. That was my thought. Mm-hmm. This isn't working. I'm throwing in the towel. And we're going to get into that exact scenario in a minute. Maybe you think that maybe your thoughts are that you have no motivation or you have no energy to devote to another attempt at weight loss. Maybe you think of yourself as somebody that has no control around food. Maybe you find yourself with the thoughts of, I'm an emotional eater. I have no self-control. Or maybe it's real specific. I don't have control around, and then fill in the blank, ice cream, Oreos. And I've heard these things come from so many clients over the years. But what if I told you that all of the thoughts that you think that are just like that were untrue? What if I told you that these thoughts are just stories that you're telling yourself and you are rehearsing a pattern of actions when you think those thoughts. And because you rehearse these thoughts, you reinforce them as true with your choices that make these thoughts true, which subconsciously makes you believe them even more. And it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle because your brain wants reoccurring thoughts that come true. The past self thoughts that you have, if they're not serving your goal, we have to let go of those thoughts. And when you change your thoughts, you can literally change your life. So step one is let go of any thought that does not serve your goal. Whether it's, I need to finish my plate because I need to be a part of the Clean Plate Club, I can't leave anything on my plate, or whether it's, I'm a failure, I can't possibly lose weight, or I can't control myself around Oreos. Whatever the thought is, if it's a thought that does not serve your goal, we need to recognize it and know that we have to let that thought go and craft a new thought to replace it. So we're not just going to say, let's get rid of that thought. When we craft a new thought to replace that thought, then it's easier to let go of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So the thing I was thinking of when you were talking was, it's almost like we're all playing bits. Hey, I'm an XYZ person, so I'm going to act the XYZ way. I'm just going to pick a dumb example. I'm a surfer. I'm going to do these things because that's what surfers do.
Right. So
and I'm gonna act in according to play like that bit, and it's dumbing it down.
It's like James Clear says, you're identifying yourself as that person, and when you identify yourself as a specific person, you become that person. When you truly deep down to your core identify as that person, you prove it to yourself through the actions you take to become that person.
Yes.
Right.
It's like that SNL sketch of him getting the Trump shoes. And then he becomes Trump on the court. He's like, you lose.
I made that shot.
I made that shot. It was the best shot ever.
If you haven't seen the SNL skit with
Shane Gillis,
hilarious. Step 2, decide what your new thoughts are going to be. So this is where you're going to craft your new thoughts to replace your old thoughts. And you can do this through what I call the CTFAR method. And I first heard about this method from the Brooke Castillo Life School podcast. And I know, I used to listen.
It's a very obscure reference.
It is. I mean, shout out to Brooke Castillo.
Brooke Castillo.
She's taught me a lot.
Who is she? Why should we care?
She is kind of the queen of life coaching, I suppose.
There's only one queen in my life.
That would be me. Right?
Ding. Yeah.
So I'm going to do my best to break down the CTFAR model. I want you to imagine writing the letters CTFAR down the spine of a notebook from top to bottom. And the C stands for circumstance. The T stands for thoughts. The F, feelings. A, action. And R, results. And let me cover each one of these, and then I'm going to give you an example of how that model can help you craft your new thoughts. The C, back to the top, the C in CTFAR is circumstance. And a circumstance is a fact that we can all agree upon. It is not an opinion. It's also the only part of the CTFAR model that you cannot change. A circumstance might be that there's cake on the table at a birthday party. Maybe it's, somebody's birthday and you're there and we could all look at the table and agree that there is a cake sitting on the table. A circumstance might be as simple as there's 24 hours in a day. Everybody can agree on that. Or a circumstance might be that you get on a scale and you see a number. And if somebody was standing next to you and they saw that number, they would agree that they saw the exact same number that you saw. Moving on to the T. The T is thoughts, and thoughts are stories that you tell yourself. They might be true or they might be untrue. They're basically sentences that you rehearse in your brain. The F is feelings. These are one-word emotions that come from your thoughts. Maybe you feel defeated or anxious or happy or fear. A is for action or lack of action. The action that you take in every choice that you make throughout your day is driven by your thoughts and feelings. The model, and I'm not done because I haven't covered R, but the model the circumstance creates your thoughts, and your thoughts create your feelings. Your thoughts and feelings drive your actions. And then finally, the R, your actions drive what your results are. And the results are basically exactly that, the outcome of the action or the inaction that you took. So let me provide a classic example of using the CTFAR model. Let's unpack the thought that I mentioned earlier. Earlier, I mentioned the circumstance that you're 5 days into a diet, you step on a scale, and you see the scale go up a pound or maybe 2 pounds. The number on the scale is a circumstance. If there were 100 people in the room watching you step on the scale, you would all agree that the number on the scale shows exactly what it shows. In that moment, you cannot change that circumstance. You immediately, in that moment, you might have the thought of which your past self has always had when this happens. My past self did too. I knew this diet wasn't going to work. I always fail at diets. This diet is no different. I'm no different. And you feel upset. You feel defeated. You feel like a failure. And so your action is you throw in the towel and you head for the donut shop because the diet wasn't working anyways. And the result is you gain the weight back because any weight that you lost is just regained. So you can see that your result came directly from your thoughts and your feelings. You proved yourself right with your thoughts. You thought that the diet wasn't working. You thought that you were a failure, and you proved your statement true with your actions. But your actions were a direct result from your thoughts. So remember that step 2 of Mindshift is to decide what new thoughts that you're going to have. So we have to backwards design our new thoughts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Are you following along, Tyler?
It's a lot.
It is. It is a lot. By the way, shout out to the entire world of education out there. I lived 20 years in education. That is where I learned the art of backward design and realized that backwards design can work crafting your new thoughts. So how do we backwards design our thoughts? If your thoughts lead to your results, then you want to start with the results that you want. And for most of you listening, I'm betting that the results you want is weight loss. So let's fill in the R. Again, I want you to imagine CTFAR is written down the spine of a notebook. Let's start at the bottom. We're going to fill in the R. And the result we want is fat loss. So right above results lives action. So let's fill that in. If you want weight loss as your result, you have to ask yourself, what kind of action do I have to take to get that result? And also let me remind you that the C in CTFAR, circumstance, that cannot be changed. So our circumstance example is still the same. You got on the scale, you're 5 days into a new diet, you saw the scale go up by a few pounds. That did not change in this model. Back to the A for action. You want fat loss to be your result. What action do you have to take if that scenario happens to you? The action is you have to stay the course of your new diet. You have to keep your habits in place. Those are the actions that will bring you the results that you want. And then the next question you ask yourself, you go up the model, you're going to ask, okay, what feelings must I feel when I step on the scale in order to take those actions? In order to even though you saw the weight go up on the scale, in order to stay the course and know that you can do this, you have to feel empowered. You have to feel self-love. You have to feel worthy of taking those actions. So we can fill that feeling line in with empowered, self-love, determined, worthy. All of those things are the things we need to feel. Well, let's go up the model to thoughts. What thoughts do we need to create to have those feelings of empowerment? Maybe we have to think the thought, I'm determined to reach my goal. That scale does not define my self-worth. I am not a perfect human being. I know that I am 100% capable of reaching my goal. I am strong enough to stay the course. And that's it. There you have it. You've just crafted your brand new thoughts through backwards design, given the same exact circumstance. Remember, the circumstance didn't change, but instead of stepping on the scale, see your weight go up by 2 pounds, instead of saying, I'm a failure, this isn't working, you're stepping on the scale, you're seeing the weight go up by 2 pounds, and you're saying, you know what? That's okay, because I'm determined. I am powerful, I am strong, and I am going to stay the course. For any of you who have been following any of my pages for a length of time, you will know that this was something that I think this is kind of the inception of Mindshift for me, because Ty, you were right. Every diet I ever did, I would step on the scale and I would allow the scale to completely determine my mood, because I would feel like I would have the thoughts, I am a failure, this isn't working. And I knew that if I didn't change my thoughts, then there was no way I was going to stay the course. I got a piece of paper out of my journal and I wrote on it, I am not perfect. I am determined. I will see progress. And I wrote it in a red marker and I taped it to our scale. I taped it to the bathroom scale. And every time I stepped on my scale to check to see, what my current weight was, I would read the words, I wouldn't just see my weight. I would read the words. I am not perfect. I am determined. I will see progress. And because I saw those words every single day and I read them to myself every single day, I started to believe them and I realized those thoughts are powerful. And those thoughts, being really determined and knowing that I will see progress, I knew I had to stay the course, and it kept me on the path to success. And I started to show action in line with those thoughts and feelings that I had. And those actions led to my results of sustainable weight loss. Mm-hmm. And it was all about me changing how I thought. So I cannot stress enough, it is a big deal to backwards design your new thoughts. And backwards design, really, it's going to work with any barrier that you have to weight loss. I hear clients tell me all the time that they don't have enough time to meal prep, or they don't have enough time to walk so many steps a day or strength train. And I tell those clients that they're basically manifesting their results through those thoughts, because the circumstance is, or the fact is we all have 24 hours in a day. How I think about those 24 hours and how you think about those 24 hours might be different. And
unless you're in residency, you're making up a story.
That's true.
For the vast majority of people.
Yes.
You can. You're just choosing not to.
Correct.
And not to say it'll be easy, not to say you're not going to have to give up something, because you're probably going to have to give up something, because you're probably right.
And you'll have to get uncomfortable with yourself, and that's okay.
Yeah, you might not have an extra hour a day. So you're going to have to shift something around or curtail XYZ or whatever. The notion like, I can't do it, I don't have time. It's like, you have to make time. It's the whole point.
One of the first things I might even ask is, if you say you don't have time, open your phone and show me how much time you spent on your phone this week. Show me your screen time. And I bet if you look at your screen time,
Well, you should look at your screen time regardless, so it kind of scares you into getting off of it.
I mean, you might realize, oh, wow, I do have time. And if you're not willing to look at it, then you may not be willing to get uncomfortable to get the results you want.
Yeah. It's an uncomfortable reality.
It is an uncomfortable reality.
I think a lot of people don't like to point that out. They would just want to pretend weight loss and all this kind of stuff is like rainbows and butterflies. And it can be. In the end, like, absolutely it can be. But the beginning is going to suck, because you have to undo a lot of, bad choices, bad habits.
I stand my ground in the idea that it's your thoughts that drive your actions, and it's your actions that drive your results. So ask yourself what result you want, work backwards, and design your new thoughts. Now that you've let go of your past, that was step 1, and you've designed your new thoughts, that's step 2. Let's move on to step 3, which is, now that you have a new thought, let's practice the new thought. Remember, if you currently tell yourself that you have no control around food, you will prove that thought correct over and over again. So don't skip the step of letting go of that thought and crafting a new thought for that one. Once you've crafted your new thought, you have to put that new thought into practice. Maybe your new thought is, I do have control around ice cream because I am both strong and I am determined. And it might be helpful just to even grab it. It sounds silly, but I'm telling you it works. It's going to be helpful just to grab a sticky note, write those thoughts down, and place it somewhere helpful. Maybe it's the dashboard of your car. Maybe it's the desktop at work. Maybe it's the front of your refrigerator. Or even better, post it in all 3 places, and you can practice those thoughts multiple times a day. Try it out. You might be surprised. When you practice your new thoughts, you're going to begin to believe them. Or just the sheer act of practicing those thoughts, you're more likely to align yourself with those actions. If you read, I am capable of making great food choices today on your work computer just before you head to lunch, because you wrote that down on a sticky note. Let me say it again. I'm capable of making great food choices today. And you read that right before you head to lunch. Guess what? You're more likely to do exactly that. Make great food choices. You're going to prove it to yourself because you wrote it down and you saw it right before you went to lunch. Let's not forget James Clear, a Atomic Habits, he says that every choice you make or every action that you take is a vote for the person that you want to become. And the more votes you cast for your ideal self, the closer you get to your ideal self. So the very next action that you take today, it's either going to be a vote for the person that you want to become, or it's going to be a vote against her. Well, I for sure want to cast more votes for the person I want to be.
And I think that's an important point. It's cumulative.
It is.
So it's not
It's not perfection.
Okay, today for lunch, I had a cheeseburger. So that means I'm ruined. It's like, no, you made one vote. You made one vote in a direction you don't want to be going in.
Just cast more votes for the direction you want to go.
Get it straight.
Absolutely.
That's all you have to do.
That's right.
Don't beat yourself up. Just fix it and move on.
That's right. And you step on a scale, you gain a couple pounds. Oh, well, that's okay because you are determined and you will stay the course. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where my habit tracker comes in handy. And this is kind of where we move from Mindshift to Mealshift to micro habits. The habit tracker does hold you accountable for the actions that you take daily. It helps build motivation for the person that you want to become. It's kind of a record keeping, proving to yourself that you are indeed empowered, that you are indeed capable of getting to your goal, which reinforces those positive thoughts that you crafted. So if you crafted the positive thoughts of, I am capable of getting to my goal, I am capable of eating a reasonable portion of ice cream. Create a habit tracker around your new crafted thought if you want to. And that's kind of where we wrap up today's episode. I absolutely encourage every single person to reflect on your thoughts. The truth is that your thoughts lead directly to your results. So in summary, step 1, let go of your past thoughts. Step 2, craft your new thoughts through backwards design using the CTFAR model. When you do backwards design, real quick, let me say this. You can fill in the circumstance first if you'd like to, because that's the thing that doesn't change. That's the barrier that you might have to weight loss. And then work from results upward. So again, results being weight loss or fat loss, and then work your way up the model. And step 3, practice those new thoughts even better, write them down, and then practice them. If you constantly think positively, if you constantly believe in your ability to change and approach challenges and approach them with resilience, you're going to see tangible results. It's about creating a mental environment that fosters all of your growth and all of your progress. Are the thoughts you have aligning with the transformation that you desire? Are you practicing self-love in your daily life? Remember that your journey to weight loss is not just physical, but it's holistic transformation that starts within. And it starts with the first M of FormFit, and that is Mindshift. And it is the most important. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Transform Yourself. If you found today's discussion valuable, please share it with someone who might benefit. Remember that you are capable of incredible changes, and it all begins with the right mindset and maybe a new learned skill. So until next time, stay committed to your journey, continue loving yourself, and keep transforming yourself.
Adios.